My name is Gail Schuberg, and as the editor, I'll say. And I don't even have my accordion with me. So as the editor of the Drifter newspaper, I'm happy to welcome you all to this event that we are co-sponsoring with the Salt Spring Forum. And I'd especially like to thank the Forum's Richard Steele for taking the lead on organizing everything. He did a wonderful job, and yes. Anyone who was here last night would be very sensitive to the issue of land acknowledgements. So I will just say that this is taking place on the unceded and traditional territories of the Hulkaminam and Sinshotan speaking people. Our moderator for the evening is Valeska San Martin. She's a Salt Spring Forum board member and a French immersion teacher in our school district. And Erin Magley from the Driftwood is the timekeeper for the evening. So the candidates from your left to right: Amy Haysom, Independent; David Bush from the Conservative; Rob Botterill, Green Party; and Sarah Riddle, NDP. So Valeska will outline the format for the evening, and we'll be on our way. Thank you.
Thank you, Gail. Thank you and good evening, everyone. I'm going to be sharing the format that we're going to use this evening, including how you can ask questions. So the candidates have agreed to the format and the rules of order for this evening's events. Each panelist will begin with a 2-minute opening statement, followed by an opportunity for the audience to ask the candidate questions. For the questions, to ensure that we cover as much content as possible, we kindly ask everyone to maintain a positive and respectful tone throughout the event. Please reserve your applause for the end of the evening. Just before we get started, we ask 3 things from our participating audience this evening. First, before asking your question, please introduce yourself stating your name. Next, limit yourself to 1 question. Please ensure it is concise and direct rather than a statement. Finally, kindly specify to whom your question is directed. If your question is addressed to all candidates, each will have 60 seconds to respond. If it is directed to a single candidate, they will have 90 seconds. We ask you to form a line on the left by the stairs. Please don't block the exit sign, and you can start lining up whenever you feel ready. Nobody's running yet. That's a good sign. All right. I'm going to call, I think we'll get started right away if that's all right with everyone. All right. So to get underway, I will call on Amy Haysom, Independent, to make opening remarks for 2 minutes. Amy, the floor is yours.
Good evening. My name is Amy Haysom, and I am your Independent MLA candidate for Saanich North and the Islands. This is a key moment in BC history where we have a record number of independents, and it is highly expected that more than one of us will succeed in this BC election and offer a significant balance of power in the BC legislature, with the possibility to negotiate a confidence and supply agreement or not in the case of a minority government. The second question in the CBC Leaders Debate last night highlighted there is a growing number of British Columbians disillusioned by the parties on offer. The political climate has become so polarized that constituents don't wish to choose any party. One leader said, "Wouldn't it be nice to imagine a world where MLAs come together and work in collaboration?" We don't have to imagine, it exists already. In the Northwest Territories, there is a strong Indigenous population, and all MLAs are independents. They represent their constituents directly, and decisions are consensus-based. We need to move towards best practices. First and foremost, I am beholden to you, the constituents. 2 weeks ago, I launched my candidate website, aimforamy.ca, and on it I solicit feedback in the Our Voice section from you, the constituents. The response has been excellent, and tonight much of what I share will be your voice. I'm listening. Many years ago, when I lived on the Saanich Peninsula, I worked with the Centre for Global Studies and the Canadian Commission for UNESCO, often flying to Ottawa to partner with government on policies and initiatives committed to sustainability and development. I created a youth advisory group that continues to this day. Most of you know me at more of a grassroots level here on Salt Spring. Over the last 15 years, I've been a mother, worked in education, and owned a small business. The Centre for Global Studies Director, ex-Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs, Gordon Smith, stated, "Amy, you must get into politics." Mo Sahoda, in last night's debate preamble, said, "We need candidates who are relatable." I am relatable, I am listening, and I will be your strong voice in a divided legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy Haysom, Independent. If I could just ask everyone to check that their phones are off so we don't have phones ringing, please. Next up, David Bush from the BC Conservative Party. David, please go ahead. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you. And thank you to all to come and hear us speak today and get informed about our positions for the upcoming election. My name is David Bush, and I'm your Conservative candidate. For those of you who have already met me, you'll be aware I have a degree in biochemistry, a second degree in nursing. I've worked as a critical care nurse. I have taught nursing. And then I put myself through law school working as a pediatric cardiology nurse. My wife is a cardiologist. Healthcare is a big part of the reason why I am here. A long, long time ago, as they say in the fairy tales, we had a great healthcare system, and we can again, but it's been crumbling. And it wouldn't be fair to blame any one party for its crumbling. But over the last 7 years, we haven't been able to get it turned around, and that is a problem because we're running out of time. My other big motivation, my 2 young boys, they're 7 and 8. I want to make sure that they can grow up, live, work, and play here in this wonderful place we call home. But I don't want them to be sleeping on my couch when they're 40 because they can't afford to move out and get a place of their own. Those are the big issues that motivate me. Now, I'm going to take a minute just to talk about an issue that I've heard from Salt Spring and the other islands, and that's the Islands Trust and the Improvements District. This has got to be fixed. Your trustees have voted twice unanimously to get the government to reopen and to fix the legislation. It hasn't happened. And as a result, the islanders are missing out on significant amount of money. Just recently, another $50,000 was lost by the Fire Improvement District to be able to capture and retain more water in the event of a fire. We need to open this up. Adam Olsen, despite his best efforts, was not able to get the NDP government to do this. The NDP government has shown they're not interested in doing this. It's time for change. We need change. Let me be your voice of change and represent you in the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, David Bush, BC Conservative Party. Up next, Rob Bottrell from the BC Green Party. Rob, the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Great, thanks very much, and thanks for joining us this evening. I've spent 25 years as a lawyer dealing with BC and Canada, negotiating agreements, securing funding, drafting legislation, resolving complex issues, and I've made a big difference for the First Nations and local governments who I work for, and it's been hugely rewarding to me. Before that, I was in finance. I was the financial controller for the TD Bank for a time. I worked with the Ministry of Finance for BC and saw up close and personal how to deal with financial issues. And a long time ago, in the 1980s, I was an islands trustee for Bowen Island. I live in Victoria. I live on Pender Island. I grew up in Victoria, and my daughter Allie lives there, and we live on Pender Island. We've lived in North Saanich and Sydney. This is a really beautiful place, a wonderful part of the world, and I want to give back to keep it special. There are 87 MLAs in the BC legislature, and they form the decision-making table of government. And there are independent thinkers, and one that has always inspired me is Adam Olsen. He asks the tough questions. He holds the government's feet to the fire, but he also proposes solutions to issues, and he's independent in his approach. Others are held to the party account. They have to hold the party line. You know, we face many, many challenging issues, and we'll talk about a lot of them tonight. And what we do know is that the mainline parties EB and Rustad, they've had majority governments, have been part of majority governments, and we're still having the same issues unresolved. Let's not take the same old, let's try something new. Let's try what we tried in 2017. And my leader, Sonia Firstnow, made the strongest case possible last night about the benefits of having Greens holding the balance of power. And we get productive government rather than the back and forth bashing between parties, and we get results. So after 7 years, Adam's demonstrated huge momentum, and I want to carry on with that momentum. I want to work for you to make sure that we solve these issues once and for all. And
Thank you. Rob Buttrell, BC Green Party. Finally, Sarah Riddle, BC NDP Party. Sarah, please go ahead. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you. Thank you so much to the organizers, and thank you to all of you for being here and participating in this important process. I live in Brentwood Bay on the Saanich Peninsula with my partner Evan and our 2 kids. They're 3 and 6 years old, and today is actually our 14th wedding anniversary, so I'm a little sad not to be with them, but I'm so happy to be here with you because this is an incredible opportunity to hear from you and answer the questions that are top of mind. I also do have some family on Salt Spring Island that are here supporting me, and I'm grateful for that support. I have master's degrees in public administration and health administration. I'm a municipal councillor in Central Saanich, where I've been a strong advocate and champion for decisive climate action and for affordable housing. I'm also an alternate director on the Capital Regional District. I spent many years working at the Office of the Auditor General, looking at the economy, efficiency, and effectiveness of our health system. And I saw a lot of the challenges that we're facing today coming. I saw the impact of the cuts that we had under the BC Liberals in 2011 and 2012, and a lot of the decisions that were made during those years and how they've come to pass today. After working there for many years, I decided I didn't want to point out problems and make recommendations. I actually wanted to solve them, and I went over to the Ministry of Health, where I became the director of the Medical Services Payment Schedule, which is fee-for-service payments to physician. It's almost a $4 billion program now. Okay, thank you. I'm looking forward to the discussion tonight.
Thank you, Sarah Riddle, BC NDP Party. Now we're going to move to the next portion, which is questions from the audience. I'll just remind you one more time the guidelines. Please begin by stating your name. Next, keep it to one question, brief and to the point, avoid statements, and finally indicate which panelist your question is directed towards.
Good evening, one and all. My name is Angela Lavery, longtime resident of Salt Spring Island. I've written my question down, so I'll be as direct as possible.
Thank you.
RV trailers, tiny home living is growing exponentially as a result of BC housing crisis. Part of the housing solution is to allow people to live full-time in RVs, trailers, and tiny homes. Now, will your government amend legal framework to allow municipalities and regional districts, including community charters, to allow RV trailers, tiny homes, full-time occupancy as residential dwellings if the RV and tiny house is connected to water, electricity, and sewage disposal? Thank you.
Was this question directed to everyone? Yes. Thank you. David, you have 90 seconds, please. Oh, sorry, 60 seconds, please.
60 seconds,
yes.
Okay. I'll keep it shorter than that. At the end of the day, we need to explore every opportunity, and if they are hooked up to water and sewage, there's no reason not to allow them.
Thank you. Rob?
Yes.
Thank you. Sarah?
So I think we do need to explore all options. I would say that I prefer that not to be our long-term solution to the housing crisis. We need to be doing way more than permitting trailers and tiny homes. We need to be building long-term homes across the board for all different kinds of folks, and we have a really strong plan to get that work going.
Thank you. Amy?
In New Brunswick, they've already amended their bylaws to permit tiny homes. There are best practices happening across the country already. I work currently for a geodesic dome company, and current affairs, we are bumping into having these permitted. There is a lot of red tape. We need to amend bylaws, and we need to do it now. We need to look closely at our legislation. There are all sorts of possibilities: modular structures, sprung structures, geodesic domes. Best practice in New Brunswick already, 12 neighbors, look it up. These kind of cooperative community housing are low impact, and they're working for the environment and for the population. Thank you.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Yeah, my name is Jenny McLean. I want to ask each one of you, if your party is elected to be the governing party of British Columbia, what would be your decisions around involuntary care in terms of the places that have shown success already with people who are living with mental illness and drug addiction who are not in involuntary care and have drug testing on site, such as examples like the villages in Duncan and as well High Tide and the yet to come Ebb Tide housing in Sechelt. Would your government then close down those places that allow safe supply? Thank you.
Thank you, Jenny. Rob, we'll begin with you. You have 90 seconds.
We will not close down existing facilities. There's already 20,000 citizens in involuntary care, and what we need is a wraparound approach that puts more resources in order to assist folks to make the decisions to go into treatment when they're ready and to have the resources there when they're ready. And so it's really important to focus on the dignity and compassion to individuals. We could all be in those situations ourselves. And so the Green Party is very focused on increasing the degree of resources that are available and not closing down facilities like the Aurora in Central Saanich, but rather working with individuals, supporting them so that they can actually choose the right path for them and be supported to be fully happy in their lives.
Thank you, Rob. Sarah?
So the NDP also would not close down existing housing. We are trying to build up more housing across the entire spectrum of homes needed. We are also adding to the supply of treatment beds and building up mental health services. We did announce involuntary care in really limited circumstances. There is a toxic drug supply out there, which is new and difficult, and people are surviving multiple overdoses, and when they aren't able to seek that care for themselves and they've had multiple overdoses and potentially a danger to themselves and others, we have a regional model of secure, supportive, and dignified care for people in BC struggling with this situation.
Thank you. Amy?
We're in an economic crisis, we have a healthcare crisis, we have a housing crisis. And when we look at addiction and mental health issues, we have to recognize that these are symptoms, they're not the cause. We need to be diving deeply into the roots and taking responsibility for where we've gotten ourselves to. I've asked a lot of questions. This would be where I have received some input from my Our Voice section on my website. There is a concern about some of these safe injection sites. There is a concern that these are not actually safe. So I think we really need to dive deep, connect with communities closely, like Central Saanich with the Aurora Housing Project, and look how we can improve the services and the resources so that we are actually providing safety to those that are struggling with mental health and addiction. Thanks.
Thank you, Amy. David? Oh, excuse me. Yeah, David.
Every year, sadly, the number of deaths keep climbing up. There was a little bit of a pause between 21 and 22 where they held the deaths were 2,300 and a little bit over that. But in 2023, something changed when they brought in the decriminalization. The deaths rate jumped up by 10%, but that's half the story. The other half of the story is the number of overdose calls where our first responders, fortunately, were able to save the individual, jumped to 42,000. We need to start focusing on treatment, and that is a priority of our government. We can't close everything down until we get the treatment beds up and available, because we have to make sure they stay alive. But the only way we're going to be able to bring the number of deaths down is to make sure that we get treatment for those who unfortunately are addicted to the drugs, because otherwise an accident will happen. It's a question of when, not if. So we will be looking to bring in mandatory treatment for those people who are unable to function in society so that they can get the care they need. And will it work the first time? No, but we have to stay there and keep helping them.
Thank you, David. Next question, please.
Hi, I'm Connie Gibbs, and my question is for Sarah Riddle. Just a brief statement that I saw the televised debate last night of the two leaders, and they represent two dramatically different visions for the future of this province. And so I wanted to ask Sarah, because her leader last night, David Eby, said repeatedly, there's still so much to do. He's been Premier for 2 years. What are you looking forward to doing in the next 4 years should David Eby be re-elected as Premier?
Thank you. Sarah, you have 90 seconds.
Okay, so I think first, affordability is a really big priority for folks, and so our focus in that area is keeping household costs low so that everybody can get by. The next thing is housing. Housing is a huge challenge here on the island. It's a huge challenge across our entire riding, and we need more of it. We need more affordable housing, and so tackling that in all the different ways, tackling supply of housing, making it easier to build housing, and also tamping down demand for homes, for houses that are not being used as homes, really important. And healthcare. Healthcare is close to my heart. It's where I've spent most of my life. We've done lots of really good work recruiting new family doctors. I was involved in a new doctor payment model. One of the most significant reforms into primary care in decades. We've attracted more than 800 family doctors, and now we need to work collaboratively with community to get those doctors working on the ground and connected to patients. We've attached 400,000 so far, and we won't stop until everybody has a family doctor. That looks like that's going to be by the end of 2025, because we can now match the list of physicians we have with patients. So that's a really powerful thing that we're doing. A lot of other things in the works. All right.
Thank you, Sarah. David, you have 60 seconds to comment.
Thank you. Over.
Yeah.
I got 60 seconds? Yes. Okay, thank you. Just want to chime in on this for a second, because we've seen over the last 7 years of when the NDP have been governing this province, housing prices going through the roof, affordability decreasing, discretionary income decreasing, healthcare decreasing. It was just over a year ago, actually about 15 months ago, that the Saanich Peninsula Hospital had to start closing its ER at night on a temporary basis. Well, that temporary basis is now 15 months and counting. The staffing is not there. Their solutions, unfortunately, aren't working. We need a change on that, and that's where I am looking forward to stepping forwards as part of a Conservative government to bring our healthcare plan forwards. I can't talk about it in the 10 seconds remaining to me, but please come and talk to me or send me an email to ask me about it later, because we can make sure we get the staff so that the Sandpen Hospital is full and the new ER that just opened today can be fully staffed.
Thank you, David. Rob?
The healthcare is a huge issue, and what I would do as your MLA is I would set up a roundtable on this island within 30 days of being elected, and what we would do is we would work with the community and health professionals in the community to build a community health center model and suited to this community, and seek funding as needed, and we would I've already talked to Elizabeth May about inviting Jane Philpott to join an early meeting of that roundtable to get to work. We need a community health center in this area to cover off all the people I'm hearing don't have doctors, and we need that model because that is the way in which doctors will happily move into this section. As Sonia mentioned last night, there are more doctors per capita in this province than anywhere else in Canada. It's just we have to create the environment so they will wish to work in.
Thank you, Rob. Amy?
I'd just like to pipe up a yes and approach. I think we weren't really supposed to respond to this. You are hearing a lot of shared vision in relation to healthcare. And so I think it is important to highlight that oftentimes, even though they may sound opposing, there's an opportunity to place policy on the table, and rather than, in order for mine to be right, I need to knock yours off, let's watch something evolve. So what I'm hearing right now is a shared vision for healthcare, and there is a lot of hope, BC.
Thank you, Amy. Next question, please.
Hi, mine is Lee Johnstone. Active transportation. A plan put forth last year by both the federal and provincial government. I want all the candidates to talk about active transportation plan, please, but I first have a very specific question to the NDP candidate, please. NDP candidate, what happened to that e-bike rebate program? Told us all about it in June, we all applied. Within 2 days, it was all gone, and all we got was waiting list, and it's still a waiting list. So where is that at?
Thank you.
All right.
Sarah?
That is a very specific question that nobody has asked me before, and I appreciate that. If I had applied for an e-bike rebate, I would want to know too, so I will have to take that one away. And if I'm elected to, I'll follow it up either way, but if I'm elected to be MLA, I will certainly get right on that because I have not only one, but 2 e-bikes, one just for me and a cargo e-bike that I ride my kids to school and I get to work on, so.
Thank you. Amy?
Mayana Lee, you asked this question on Friday, and I was very happy to witness. I've maybe experienced some resistance from you in the past, and then after that, I think I got some accolades. So I'm going to reflect. First and foremost, I have an e-bike, so I want that rebate too, ASAP. Viable, frequent options when it comes to transportation, and this is in relation to our roads, first, for the road infrastructure rather, our bus, our transit system, and BC ferries. So we need more frequent, we need easy accessibility. I would love to see pets able to go on some buses rather, or some transport. And I think that giving an opportunity, reducing cost, or even making it free to young people, BC ferries free for young people, yes please, and more inter-island frequency as well. We have incredible small business within these outer islands, and there is an opportunity to develop those further. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. David?
Thank you. I don't own an e-bike. I am a cyclist. I do race Ironmans, so I like to use my pedal power. It helps to keep me in shape. That being said, we need the infrastructure for it because a number of years ago I was actually hit on my bike the one day, and this is a problem that all cyclists face. We need to make sure we have good cycling infrastructure. We also have to make sure that we have a busing system that works. For me, if I am successful and you give me your vote on October 19th to get to the legislature, I can bike it in 30 minutes, jog it in 40, but it takes me almost an hour by bus. That's a problem because it's no fun biking in the rain. Also, we need to work on the BC ferries. We need to get better transport going to and from the islands. One of the things we would like to explore is to get in a passenger ferry, and that would also be able to take bikes with it as well to increase service going back and forth to the islands. And the other piece I wanted to mention on this is our infrastructure plan for all municipalities, and that would include Salt Spring of $1 billion a year to help building new infrastructure.
Thank you. Rob?
Great, thanks very much. Adam Olson achieved great things for this riding. He brought over $300 million of infrastructure to this riding. So the fact that you're a Green MLA is not a disadvantage. The areas that I want to work on, aside from e-bikes, which is really critical, is I want to work on the ferry schedule, and I want to make sure that it's suited to your needs with the capacity, and that I would want your guidance on how to advocate for that, and what to advocate for. The Green Party is for fast, free, and frequent transit, and our platform lays out a detailed approach to that. And what we've seen in other parts of the riding is an effort to have Uber on-demand type of handy dart service to make it easy to get out of your vehicle and get around the island. Call up the handy dart, and I would love to work with you on that. And in terms of the overall approach to infrastructure, we can get the funds to do the infrastructure for transportation on this island. I have experience getting that, $30 million for a road in the mid-island. I know how to get there.
Thank you, Rob. Next question, please.
Thank you. So the NDP government, if elected, would expand transit. That's already in the plan over the next 3 years. And I did go through the Conservative plan and try to find out their plans for transit, and all I found was a lot of plans to expand the width of highways and make it easier for them to accommodate more cars. When it comes to active transportation, and I'm talking about bike lanes, sidewalks, crosswalks, all of the things that make it easy and safe for us to get around without a car, I've been a huge champion for that in Central Saanich. I worked with my council to allocate more than $10 million over 5 years, and I've advocated as well through the municipal organizations, the Union of BC Municipalities, to ask the province to invest more in their roads, so that would include roads on the island. So I have a really strong record of advocating for that, and if I were part of government, I would have an even stronger voice to get things done for the community here.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question, please.
Ask Sarah, maybe she needs to go closer to the mic for before I'm in the picture.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Janet Hogue, and my question is for all of the candidates. As a grandmother and an educator, I'd like to ask a question that is about a topic that's very close to my heart: early learning and care. Licensed childcare spaces are few and far between in our province. There is long wait lists and staff shortages. We need to support young families by providing affordable, accessible, and quality care. Our children are our most precious resource. If you are elected, what is your plan to support young families and educators to alleviate the childcare crisis?
Thank you, Janet. Amy, you have 60 seconds, please.
Okay. So I've worked with Jan in the education system, so I know all too well how much of a priority it should be. I actually had some suggestions in relation to doctors, or developing or expanding our resources in the doctor and nurse practitioner realm, and I think it applies absolutely to educators, particularly early childhood educators. So in terms of advocating for a school pathway that would be subsidized for candidates who want to remain in the province, or people who want to be in the province, and I think subsidized, funded opportunities, absolutely. I think the BC Teachers Federation is a key resource when it comes to education, and I think we need to look at alternatives as well. But very first and foremost, just prioritizing early childhood education so that we're meeting those childcare needs, and subsidizing in order to get staff. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. David?
We need to be investing more money into both healthcare as well as education, and that includes early childhood education. When I was out here last week speaking, we got to hear from one individual who was an early childhood educator but couldn't get her credentials recognized here. That's part of the problem. We need to get those people with the credentials. We need to make sure that they're able to work. That forms part of our plan. It applies to doctors, it applies to nurses, as well as plumbers and electricians, skills that we need. They need to be able to have a one-stop shop where they can come in, make sure they're safe, make sure they're competent, and then get their skills recognized. Also, with regards specifically to childcare, we need to fix the problem we got going right now. The wait lists have never been longer. That's not a sign of a successful program. That's a sign that the program's not meeting the needs. And that involves putting more resources into it, but also looking for ways to improve it so that we get more spaces opening up and that people have the choice to be able to find those locations, whether it is through a friend or through an established agency or through the current program that we're running. Thank you.
Thank you, David. Rob?
Great. The BC Green Party's platform is to create a universal early childhood education funding model to reduce administrative burden for childcare providers, implement a gradual increase to the ECE wage grid and have it reach $30 to $40 per hour by 2026. We also need to improve access to affordable childcare for children under 5. And in our fully costed budget, we would allocate at least $250 million to expand childcare space creation for children and infants under 5. And we will use our voice in the legislature to ensure the province remains on track to deliver $10 a day childcare for all, and provide $100 million in new funding to create a capital program within the Ministry of Education to support ECE space creation. We really have to do a lot more, and we've laid out a very specific program in that regard.
Thank you, Rob. Sarah?
Thank you. So as a parent, I can personally attest that we have made progress. We've cut fees in half over the past 7 years, with up to $10,800 per year in savings per family, and increased the number of childcare spaces by 37,000, and I have noticed that difference personally in my own childcare availability and cost. But there's so much more to do, and I agree with all the comments regarding the credentialing and bringing people in faster, and that's something we'll be working on. We have committed to invest $500 million in infrastructure for childcare. We need more spaces. And then we will also be expanding the $10 a day model and adding in affordable and accessible before and after school care, which is something that I hear about from parents all the time. The Conservative platform, when it comes to childcare, they've said they're going to expand the $10 a day program for some folks. Nothing around before and after school care or the level of affordability across the board we've introduced.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question, please.
I'm very nervous. My name is Susanna Devitt. I'm advocating right now for the walking wounded. Do you know who these people are? These people are those who have been in accidents of one kind: job, sport, stroke, vehicle, bike, skateboarding, or another, got hooked on inexpensive opioids per doctor's prescriptions. And the many delays that ICBC, WorkSafe, or other insurance companies put on our citizens, so they don't recover in a timely manner and lose all their purpose, self-hope, home, belongings, work, families, etc. And guess where they're living? On the streets, where hopeless is a strong factor, where individuals suffering so much that they take their own lives. I'm personally involved in a very close family member right now. How would your party hold accountability to the delays of the insurance companies that are calling on this? This might be a loaded question, but I just really feel very passionate about this. So thank you.
Thank you, Susanna. David, you have 60 seconds.
This is something I see daily in my legal practice, and specifically with regards to insurance companies, one of the things we will be doing is repealing the no-fault so that people can get the care they need and the compensation they need. But it's not just a matter of the insurance companies. Part of the problem is the lack of access to family physicians, lack of access to timely scans, tests, and this goes back to healthcare as a whole. We need to get the family physicians in, we need to get the diagnostic equipment in, and we need to, once we do that, we can shift our healthcare system from an illness-disease model, and sorry, this is the nurse in me talking, to a preventative care model where you prevent the injury, you prevent the illness, and when things do happen, happen, you can get it done timely. One of the things the NDP did is they stopped the use of the Falls Creek Clinic for WorkSafe. That meant injured workers weren't able to get access to timely scans, timely surgery, and back at work quickly, and instead were spending months, even years on disability waiting for those tests and the surgery, after which they don't always make it back because it has been too long. We're going to fix that.
Thank you. Rob?
There's a key thing that you can do as an independent thinker and MLA, and we've seen Elizabeth May do it, and Adam Olsen's done it, is introduce a private member's bill. And what I would like to do on this particular topic is introduce a private member's bill to create definite timelines by which services need to be delivered, and to also include in that the right to have a doctor. That should be a legal right to have a doctor, but it's related to insurance. And so what you need to do, and I've got a lot of experience drafting legislation, is to draft the standards that need to be met in the delivery of services and have it be enforceable. And that's something that can be done, and that's what I do.
Thank you. Sarah?
So thank you so much for bringing this forward. It's a really important question and something that requires a lot of attention and thought. And I agree, this does come to healthcare as a whole, and with injuries and with the type of situations that you've described, we need all sorts of different healthcare professionals. We've got a shortage across the board, and so we will be introducing a new program that forgives tuition loans for a range of health professionals in exchange for long-term service in the province, for a residency guarantee. Also requiring the regulatory colleges to provide provisional licenses immediately to Canadian trained providers, and then within 6 weeks for providers coming from other approved jurisdictions. We'll be addressing regional shortages, so recognizing that the situation is different throughout the province, so through targeted tuition assistance. Yeah.
Thank you. Amy?
I love that Rob often uses the term independent thinker. Thank you for the promotion, Rob. I didn't know about walking wounded, so thank you very much for that insight. And it's been so interesting in the short time that I have a candidate email, the number of agencies, organizations that are committed to grassroots community support in situations, specific situations like this. So they are reaching out via email on a daily basis. So Southern Gulf Islands Forum, Salt Spring Island Forum, there is such an opportunity as an MLA to bring these best practices together, learn from the best, learn from those who are on the ground, and bring that to the Legislative Assembly. I'd love to see programming for injured people just like WorkSafe. I think it can expand beyond just people injured in the workplace. And David is right, it's a healthcare situation as well. We need a streamlined approach to specialist care too. Thank you.
Thank you, Amy. Next question, please.
Just got to adjust the mic. Thank you all so much for being here. My name is Will MacPherson. I have lived experience with mental illness and addiction, which I speak publicly on in this writing, both on Salt Spring and in Sydney. I worked for Island Community Services and was the frontline worker in charge of providing supports at the Seabreeze during the BC Supreme Court case. I currently work as the program manager for the Salt Spring Mental Wellness Initiative. The thing that makes us different is people like me with lived experience are equal partners at the table in forming how we do things. And my question is about partnership. It is hard to imagine a better partner than MLA Adam Olsen. I have his cell number in my phone, which he gave me, but he made me promise to never give to anyone. He came to ask Salt Spring every week, or every month rather, that he could. Because of him, my organization, we met with the Honorable Jennifer Whiteside, the Minister of Mental Health and Addictions, as well as people within her ministry. She brought Adam brought the Minister of Transport here, which, as you can imagine, was a big turnout at the fire hall. So my question is, how are you going to continue Adam Olsen's incredible legacy of availability, access, and partnership with Salt Spring Island?
Thank you. Rob, we'll begin with you. You have 60 seconds.
The way that I would approach it is to build on what Adam did. So I will attend ask meetings. I will attend community meetings. You'll have a newsletter. I'll be part of the Salish Sea Trail Working Group, and I'll be a member of the SGI Forum, and I will work, have a constituency office on Salt Spring in my sailboat. And that'll be in Ganges, and I'll tie up and I'll be there regularly. And then I haven't, the format of this is not enabled me to talk about the fact that I want to set up a housing roundtable and a healthcare roundtable and transportation roundtable where we will meet every 2 weeks on those 3. So I'll be here for a full day to have 3 roundtables twice a month to work on those issues. And during that time, I want to hear from you and I want to work closely. I want to do more than Adam did, not because Adam didn't do an amazing job, but I really want to connect with you and make sure your issues are dealt with.
Thank you, Rob. Sarah?
Thank you. And I want to echo every single wonderful thing you just said about Adam, because we live in the same community in Brentwood Bay, and I have had all of those same experiences. And so, yeah, he's been a little bit of a mentor to me, if I'm honest. He was a counselor on the same council that I'm on, and so I've learned so much from him, including how to be a good counselor. And so the kind of MLA he is the kind of counselor I am. I am always on the phone. I respond to all calls. I go down to people's homes. I experience everything that they're talking about firsthand. I also volunteer. I make a point of getting out in the community, so volunteering at our community services organization, at the market, at our events. So that's already the kind of community leader I am, and so this would be a natural evolution. And I'll also have a plug that I have family on the island, so always a place to stay.
Thank you. Amy?
Adam is a friend of mine. Adam wooed a lot of people to his party. Was there a laugh? Okay, sorry, I misunderstood. I'll start again. May I start again? Thank you. Adam is a friend of mine. Adam wooed a lot of people to his party who were otherwise going to choose other parties. I won't go into all the details, but at one point I was running for the Greens, and Adam said, "Go win this thing, Amy. You have all the energy we need in the Legislative Assembly." That is still true. In terms of partnership, I think I answered it in my last question. There are organizations that are already doing all the great work. We don't need to reinvent the wheel. We need to partner and we need to collaborate, and we need to do it right now. I am strong in that with the Canadian Commission for UNESCO. I regularly was working with various organizations to partner with government as well to lobby initiatives related to the environment, culture, technology, sustainability. I created a youth advisory group, and I most definitely plan to do that here. The youth voice is meaningful and important. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Thank you for the question. And I think if we asked for a show of hands of how many people had Adam's cell number, there would be a lot of hands going up because that's the type of person he was. And this is one of the things about our Common Sense platform. It's not about reinventing the wheel, and Adam has shown how it should be done. And it will be easy I shouldn't say easy, it'll be exhausting, but the plan is there for the next MLA, and I'm hoping very much that it will be me, to follow in those footsteps and keep taking those meetings, keep taking those phone calls. Right before the election was called, I was going around, I hit all the islands, doing town halls, doing forums. Those are things I enjoy doing because it gives me a chance to hear from you directly, the same way Adam enjoyed hearing from you directly, and how we can assist, we can help you with your issues. And that's something I really look forward to keep doing overall. I sadly don't have a sailboat, so I can't invite you on it for a meeting, but you will see me at the coffee shops because I love my tea.
Thank you, Rob. Next question, please.
That's good, that's good. Hi, my name is Linda Loshway, and And I guess I'd just like to remind everybody that over the past 7 years, we lived through 4 years of pandemic. And we've survived it and survived it well as a province. And so these were incredibly trying times that we've come through. After watching the debate last night, it's just very clear to me it really brought home what's at stake in this election and the contrasts of what's available to us. And we have a choice of seeing environmental protections lifted, seeing privatization of our health care, among other very, very serious issues. And so I'm really concerned, and seeing the rich get richer, I'm really concerned about how we support our middle classes and how we support struggling families. And this goes across healthcare, education, the economy. And I certainly know that's where my heart is, and I'd like to hear from all of you how you intend to keep pushing our province forward to help everyone who lives here as opposed to just helping the rich. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah, we'll begin with you. You have 60 seconds.
Thank you. Oh my gosh, that's a lot to cover in 60 seconds. So keeping life affordable is priority number one right now for the NDP because it's so hard and life is so expensive. We've taken a number of steps, eliminating MSP premiums, reducing car insurance, stabilizing hydro rates. So keeping household costs low, critical. Childcare. We've cut childcare costs in half, and we're going to keep doing it and make it more affordable when it comes to before and after school care and more accessible. We announced a tax cut for the middle class of $1,000 per household or $500 per person. We're expanding public school meal programs to save families money on groceries and put kids' health first. Free transit for seniors, off-peak hours. We also have a heat pump rebate plan, and also we did say that if the federal government allows, we'll move the carbon tax on consumers over to big polluters.
Thank you. Amy?
You are absolutely right. There are some scary elements to what is being presented. There is also a lot of polarization. I have significant concerns that the Conservatives have suggested that they would repeal the Declaration on the Rights of Indigenous People Act. That is a concern. I'm going to take a moment. I listened to Cliff Cardinal last night, and I just had that moment. And there was a moment where he took a strong silence. I am a low and middle income person myself. I am a renter, and I do not have a family doctor at this moment. So when I say that I'm relatable, I mean it. And you can see me feeling it in this moment. I would be representing you because I am you. I think that there is a lot of work to be done. I've mentioned already that there is already, I'll say it in my next. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Thanks, Linda. I'm going to start talking really quick because there was a lot there. First, with regards to the environment, we'll be looking to get 40% of our forests protected from industrial activities so they can stay in the, or sorry, not 40% of our forests, but 40% of British Columbia remains to be protected. This will include old growth forests, of which the NDP to date have only managed to protect 2%. With regards to privatization in healthcare, this for me is a huge issue. This is a big reason why I am here. Like I said, we had a great system, but it is crumbling. And over the last 7 years, the NDP have not been able to turn this around. We have more ERs closures every single week than we did a year ago or 2 years ago or 3 years ago. The problem is getting worse, not better, and we're running out of time to fix it. As I said, we have a plan including recruiting more doctors, training more nurses, because it's not just about the doctors, and even getting staff out for the hospitals because they keep things going. We are running out of time, and if we don't get this fixed, we will wind up with a private healthcare, but it's going to be because we haven't had a chance to fix it, and things are getting worse under the NDP, unfortunately.
Thank you. Rob?
We're already experiencing private healthcare. I talked to folks on the doorstep over the last couple of weeks, and one of them had to go to a private option to get tests and spent $1,500. I had another situation where there was Island Health, the BC government, referring somebody to a doctor who said, oh yeah, I'll be your doctor for $3,600 a year. And so, we're headed down this slippery slope. What I'm saying, and I don't want to reinvent the wheel, I want to build on what's already been done, but I want a community health center here so that everybody has a doctor and the access is to team health. On transportation, we've talked a bit about that. There's a lot we can do on transportation to reduce the cost to folks by having fast, free, and frequent transit. And we can do that and make it a made-in Salt Springs solution. Housing, we need housing that's affordable, like $1,200, $1,500 a month, as opposed to $4,000. And we can do that. And I've got a lot of experience that we can apply to get that done here.
Thank you. Next question, please.
Well, I'm glad Minali asked about walking and biking paths already, so I can ask about climate change and biodiversity. So here we are in Salt Spring Island with, over 120 species at risk on this island alone. We're in an islands trust planning area, possibly the only ecologically based planning entity in the world. How are you going to speak for the salmon, for the trees, for the incredible place this natural place that we get to live?
Thank you, Robin. Amy, you have 60 seconds.
So you heard me have an emotional response to mentioning DRIPA. We have a very powerful and strong Indigenous community in this riding alone. There is the Marine Conservation Group in Sawut First Nation is headed to an international conference on marine conservation. They'll be presenting on kelp farming. We have best practices here already. We are in a very colonial system still. And I feel like I do want to say this. Last night I mentioned Cliff Cardinal, I'll mention him again. He spoke about the land. So I'm not going to just attach First Nations to environmental stewardship, but it certainly is a starting point in terms of how do we connect to the land. The stories here are in the land, and we have stories as well. 30 by 30. 30% by 2030, we only have 1% of our old growth left. What the heck? Why are we deferring? I will continue later, hopefully. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Thank you for that question, Robin. With my kids, big part of the reason why my wife and I chose to come here after she finished her medical training was because of the land, because of this wonderful place. Now, Amy talked about 30 by 30. We're going to be doing 40 within 4 years. That's what we're looking at, more than 30 by 30, because it needs to be done. As she mentioned 1%, my calculation says 2%, but really it's nowhere near enough of the old growth forest has been protected. And that's going to get protected within our plan within 4 years, not waiting until 2030. And frankly, I don't know why we've had to wait so long for this. And going forwards on this will also allow, though, the timber companies to know where they're never going to be allowed to touch, so that we can keep the economy of many First Nations, of communities going. We've heard a lot about UNDRIP as well, and I'm pleased to say if you take a drive down along on the peninsula and go past the Seacom First Nations, you're only going to see one sign out in front of their band office, and that's my sign.
Thank you, David. Rob?
There's so many ways we're going to work on this, but the first thing I want to do is talk about the coastal marine strategy for the coast, working on that right away and having it apply in this area, using the Southern Gulf Islands Forum to get that to happen. In terms of the LNG, we do not support any more LNG exports, and the fact that it might is portrayed by my colleague as being better than coal is false. There's a Cornell University study that demonstrates that LNG is worse than coal. But in this riding, what we will do and pursue is a Southern Gulf Islands Marine Authority with broad authority to manage the ecosystems here on your behalf to make sure that that is done. Old growth can be fully protected in 2 years, and I mentioned that at the ask. And that involves working with First Nations, and I do that work. And last but not least, I want to see that we actually zero in closely on getting 30 by 30 And we can do that with First Nations at our side. And the suggestion that 40% is going to be protected is wrong. It's already protected because it's part of the non-timber forest land base. We're going to protect 2.7 million more hectares.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
Sarah?
Thank you. So the NDP has committed to protecting 30% by 2030, and John Rustad has said he would scrap that. And thank you for making the other point around the protections. There is no protection for old growth in the Conservative platform at all. We have also committed to implementing all of the recommendations from the Old Growth Strategic Review, and that is in progress. We have taken some big steps, and there is so much more work to do. I'll just leave with a quote. The BC NDP government has objectively taken us further along than any previous government in bringing the key policy pieces together needed to protect old growth and endangered ecosystems. Under their leadership and First Nations, we are on the brink of the largest expansion of protected areas in BC's history, as dozens of Indigenous protected and conserved area plans are now underway. And that's Ken Wu, Executive Director of the Endangered Ecosystem Alliance. That's what's on the line with the Conservatives here.
Thank you, Sarah. Next question, please.
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. My name's Adrian, and I'm nonpartisan, so my question's for everyone here. I haven't decided whether I'm going to vote, let alone who I'd vote for. But by way of full disclosure, I helped Glenn Clark become Premier of this province decades ago, and I've been friends with Glenn and Mosa Hoda and Adrian Dix and his lovely partner, the poet, for decades, for 30 years now, and I've been known to correspond with Elizabeth May. I've also been a researcher for the CBC's Fifth Estate, W5 at CTV. I've done the stories that broke in the New York Times, the Washington Post, the Globe and Mail, and a few dozen others. But tonight I speak as a Salt Springer of also some decades in duration, and for my friends and neighbors, just a second. And I guess there's sort of a macro and a micro to this, but in light of the mass harms caused by wrong-headed measures instituted by our provincial government in recent years, for example, the lockdowns and mandates that hurt children's education and socialization, crushed small business people in favor of the big box stores and Amazon, rendered the community fabric of our own community, and has led to life-altering injuries and death from many, many vaccine injured. I lost one of my best friends to these boosters.
What's your question, please?
And I've got neighbors with blood clots, heart conditions, and brain and neuropathies.
Adriano,
and
could you ask your
question is,
please?
what will your party do to not allow British Columbians and Salt Springers, because we're all of the Maine, be subject to the harms that could be subjected and directed to us from national and supranational entities? That's the macro. When will you say we won't stand in lockstep with what's clearly been a disastrous, the worst public health failure and disaster in human history these last 4 years? And the most important question is, when are we going to recognize and stop adding insult to injury in our community, all the vaccine injured? I don't hear any candidates talk about that. And they're real, and you can't keep putting them in the closet and ignore them.
David, you have 60 seconds
and they
to
have
respond.
rights as much as anyone. So thank you very
Adriano.
much. That's the big question and the little question.
David, you have 60 seconds.
I heard a lot there, and I'm little unsure as to exactly the question. So I'm going to talk a little bit with regards to our position.
Will you make sure we don't repeat 2020 and 24?
Okay, our party does not believe in vaccine mandates. We believe that a person's health care should be between them and their doctor. One thing we will be doing is repealing Bill 36, because the doctors are now an arm of the provincial government, and we want to make sure that they'll be once again free to speak and self-governed so that they can speak up on what they think is best, and if the government starts to overreach, that they will be free to say, no, this is wrong. And that at the end of the day, your health care should be between you and them, with the government paying for it, because that's what the taxes are for, and that's what we want to make sure happens and continues.
Thank you. Rob?
The way to avoid the incredibly divisive events that came with COVID is to have better freedom of information. And I wrote the Freedom of Information Act in the 1990s, and it needs to be amended to ensure that when we see decisions made around vaccine mandates or other issues that are health related, that we see the same information as the decision makers. Because the problem that arises is when you don't know what formed the basis for a decision by Bonnie Henry or anybody else for that matter, it breeds distrust. And what we need is openness so that we can actually see the basis for decisions, and that will help create an environment where the next pandemic that comes along will be handled differently, because there will be accountability built into the information that you see on how decisions are made.
Thank you, Sarah.
Thank you. So I want to start by acknowledging how difficult the pandemic was for all of us, for so many of us, and we were all impacted in really different ways. And so I first want to start there. The second is, we don't want the decisions in a situation like that are completely unprecedented to be politicized. It is important to be guided by the best available evidence, even if that is changing. And I do agree with the comments about openness. I worked at the Ministry of Health during the pandemic. It was exceptionally difficult. It was a whole team of people trying to do the very best thing to keep all of us safe. Did we make all of the right decisions? Maybe not. I don't know. We can see that in hindsight, and we can understand where our strengths were and the things we could have done better. But I think the important thing is, when we're dealing with a situation like that that's unprecedented, to follow the evidence.
Thank you. Amy?
So Adriano, you are part of a large population of people who are currently undecided. And I think I'm grateful for the way you broach this. We need to be willing to get uncomfortable. In many of our candidates' debates and meetings, people have been coming with a lot of passion or feeling around particular issues. And the pandemic was intense. Many places in the world handled it differently. So in parts of Europe, you were considered immune or vaccinated if you had had the disease. Somewhere like Sweden didn't really do anything. And then in other places, there were imposed mandates. I don't have an answer, but I think we need to listen to all of them. Some people were not anti-vaxxers, but they chose not to be vaccinated. We need to recognize that there was a wide spectrum and hold space. The way it was presented in this province was, it wasn't. Just like the carbon tax, which could actually have had buy-in, but current affairs, it was imposed, and so you have a reaction. Same thing with the pandemic. We need to engage with the constituents.
Thank you, Amy. Next question, please.
Hello, my name is Kylie. I'm a fourth generation Islander. Thank you for coming here. I imagine you're getting interesting questions. My thing is Salt Spring right now needs money. It needs lots and lots of money to fix a lot of problems. We have a hospital that has 55 full-time open positions. It used to be the hospital for the entire Southern Gulf Islands. Due to the ferry stopping the inter-island ferry, that's now gone. About 20,000 other islanders now use Sydney, and where all the banking used to be here on Salt Spring. We also have roads that are crumbling. We also have a governance system that we all can't agree on works properly. When we voted for a municipality and lost, we were told we were going to get 2 extra seats on the Islands Trust. We were told that twice. Both times the Islands Trust has denied us. I'm wondering if anyone here will sit on that Islands Trust board, watch what's going on, and see if we can get our 2 extra seats that we were promised when we lost the referendum for a municipality.
Thank you. Rob, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, so,
please hold your applause.
The Islands Trust mandate of preserve and protect is something that I strongly support, but I will say that I think the Islands Trust has lost its way. and that there are a number of major issues associated with the Islands Trust that make it ineffective and costly in terms of delivering its mandate. That's the elephant in the room. And the way that we have to tackle that is we have to look at the particular issues and recommend changes to the BC government rather than throwing ourselves with the BC government and letting the BC government decide what you want. We need to work together, and I know it's difficult, and I know it's been difficult on Salt Spring. And the solution isn't necessarily municipal status, because I'd be careful what you wish for. I'd be happy to invite folks from Bowen Island to talk about what happened on Bowen Island. There are solutions, and getting a couple of extra seats may well be a good first step, and I'd advocate for that.
Thank you, Rob.
Thanks.
Sarah?
Thank you. So as a local government counselor, I have deep respect for local governments, and I've heard loud and clear, and I see now twice, that they feel a review of the Islands Trust is warranted. You're facing lots of challenges here on Salt Spring. You have a complex governance structure, and you need to figure out how you can fulfill that mandate, but also adapt and deal with the modern challenges you face. You do need money. I've heard loud and clear that you need money for roads, hospitals, you need more healthcare, and so that would be things I would champion and would be much more effective as a government MLA.
Thank you. Amy?
The Islands Trust definitely needs review. And I think we can look at an ideal within an organization, and then oftentimes we fall short. And that's okay, but we work with the actual and we continually strive for the ideal. I want to speak about rural remote communities for a moment. Our province is rich because of our rural remote communities, and yet too often the funds that are being directed by the government do not go to those communities. We need to turn that on its head. Small-scale farming is the nature of our food security. Infrastructure, resources, I'm going to speak to transportation. I mentioned inter-island, increasing the frequency of inter-island travel so we can strengthen our small businesses here on the outer islands, particularly post-pandemic. Those things need to be a priority. My concern is that the NDP government has not made it a priority for the last 4 years. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
I'd say instead of 4 years, it's been 7 years that they haven't made it a priority. Thank you for the question, Kylie. It is an issue I've been talking about. It's an issue I've been hearing about from everywhere on every island, with the exception of 3 individuals. There were 3 people, in all fairness, who said they loved it and thought it was great because nothing could get accomplished and that way nothing would change. However, everyone else is saying it must be opened up. Your trustees, as I mentioned in my introduction, have voted twice on this matter, and they've yet to get a result from the NDP. And as a result, you're missing out on massive amounts of funding, and that's got to change because that money can help you get your roads better. It can help build the infrastructure you need to make this the true paradise it should be. Now, we know things are getting close in this race because the NDP are starting to flip-flop. They're flip-flopped on the carbon tax. They flip-flop now with mandatory treatment. And I'm glad they're taking our ideas and making their own because that's good. But they've had 7 years on this and they haven't done it. We need change.
Thank you, David. We'd like to take 2 more questions, so please try and keep it as brief as possible. Thank you. Go ahead.
My name is Alan Johnson, and I'd like to start off by thanking the people in government that brought initiatives to have free transportation for seniors. It's a much needed thing. And my real question is directed to all candidates as to what their plans are to deal with the problem of housing for the working poor. And when I say that I know a number of people that are homeless on Salt Spring and are working, and because they can't afford to be indoors. and they're working in a lot of the businesses that are paying between $18 and $20 an hour, and the basic cost of living is $23 an hour on Salt Spring.
Thank you for your question, Alan.
What?
Thank you for your question. We'll start with Sarah.
I haven't finished the question. I
question.
just wanted to point out that yesterday I was told about an 82-year-old man that was living in a bus with no heating because he didn't have any alternative. Go ahead.
Thank you. Sarah.
Thank you. I hear that, and I've certainly seen the challenge that you have with affordable housing here on Salt Spring. It's really difficult. So direct and timely investment in affordable housing, so building more affordable housing on public land, doing that quickly. We can have factory-built homes in 12 weeks, so really quick. We also have subsidized insurance in our platform for landlords, and so that's intended to encourage folks to rent out available spaces that they already have long-term. We want to get all of the available housing onto the market. It's not a big solution, but at this point, it's all hands on deck. We want to make sure that everything is on the table. Another thing is we do have a partnership where there's a 60-40 split. Government will pay 40% of your mortgage long-term, and the reason that I think that one's really important is we want to attract key workers to Salt Spring long-term, and if you buy a home, you're much more likely to stay.
Thank you. Amy?
I've always said that housing is the key issue in this moment in time. Just like Maslow's hierarchy of needs, we can't reach any of that self-actualization until we actually have safe and secure home and shelter. I did a housing tour here on Salt Spring Island just about a week ago, and I am amazed. I knew already there were a lot of illegal structures, but there are more than I thought. We are struggling. And meanwhile, people on a fixed income are spending most of their income on housing. So are left in terms of even being able to service the arts or self-actualize, we've got a long way to go. I'm going to address or speak about Justine Stark with the CRD. She's got an excellent rural housing pilot project. She's a friend of mine. We've spoken in depth about it. Please ask me more. I think she spoke at Ask Salt Spring. There are possibilities. We need to lean into them. That project needs funding, so let's fund it. We need alternative housing. Thank you.
Thank you. David?
Really can't answer this in 60 seconds because there's a lot more there that needs to be done. I too had the privilege a couple months ago, one of the trustees took me around, and well, actually it wasn't just a couple months ago. Every time I come to the island over the last decade, I've seen more and more of the RVs, more and more of the homelessness. We have a BC Ferries captain living in an RV because he can't afford housing out here. I met one woman on the door the other day in tears because she was 46 and had to move it back in with her dad, and her son, who was 27, was also in living with them, and that's the only way they can make ends meet. This has been getting worse every year over the last decade. We have a plan to turn it around. Please go to votebush.ca. Happy to share it with you, show you more about it there, but I can't do it in the time that's not 60 seconds. With regards to the 60-40 split, this is just going to put inflationary fuel onto the fire. It's a 50-year mortgage. It's going to increase the available money for people to buy a house, and consequently the costs are going to surge, and that's why that particular piece absolutely terrifies me.
Thank you. Rob?
Great. So the BC Green Party has proposed a $1.5 billion annually fund to support 26,000 non-market housing. And that's what we need, non-market housing. And if we hold the balance of power, you can be sure that's going to be in the confidence and supply agreement. And only today, there was a proposal brought forward at the CRD for a rural housing fund based on the Strathcona model, where you'd allow third parties to actually pursue affordable housing, affordable being $1,200 to $1,500 a month or less. And that would be a fund that I would like to see us really advocate for. So it's not just the CRD pushing it, it's also all levels of government through the Southern Gulf Islands Forum. And the amount should be like $25 million. So that's one item. as part of a housing roundtable that I'd want to pursue. The second item is to really see what the roadblocks are on secondary suites and solve them. Thanks.
Thank you. Our final question of the evening, please.
Thank you. My name is Nisha, and this is going back to the healthcare issue. I got a letter from my longtime medical doctor, who was in practice for 40 years, during COVID, saying that she was hanging up her shingle because she was asked to, she said she had taken an oath to do no harm, and she felt that by politicians mandating the kind of treatment she should give, she couldn't live with that. I ran into her on Salt Spring a couple of weeks ago, and she actually was threatened by the government with a $500,000 fine, told that she couldn't practice anymore, and somehow her home was also threatened. So she left and went down to Mexico. She is an absolute treasure. She's a dedicated doctor. She misses her practice. What will each of you do to attract back the thousands of healthcare workers, ferry workers, fire people who worked at the fire hall, who were all, told they had to get vaccinated or lose their jobs? What will you do to bring those back, especially the healthcare professionals? I want her back.
Thank you, Nisha. Amy, please hold your applause. Amy, we'll begin with you.
Yeah, we need to humble ourselves and see where we have made mistakes. I might address Bill 36 for a moment. Bill 36 basically gives more leverage to the government in relation to making decisions for healthcare practitioners. This is a concern. This is where I do agree with my friend beside me that we should repeal Bill 36 and look at other bills like 21 and 44. In relation to bringing people back, I think we can speak in general. We have a lot to do in this province, and we need to do it now. And my concern is that there is a lot of speak and not a lot of do. I love a project-based approach, and I think you can hear a strong voice in me that would be calling projects and action to action. And now, affordable housing, healthcare, enticing people back to this province. We have a gorgeous environment. Let's create the space, meet the needs of our constituents, and they will come back. Thank you.
David.
Thank you for that question, Misha. My wife is a cardiologist, and when the BC Conservatives asked me to run for them, she was the first person I went and spoke to because she's the most important person in my life next to my kids. And she said I had to run, because we're the only party talking about repealing Bill 36 that puts the doctors under the thumb of the government. I know a number of doctors who've taken out a license in another province just in case. They are that concerned about it and the power that it gives the government. We'll be repealing that. With regards to the 5%, we lost 5% of our workforce. 5% of our doctors, of our nurses, of our physiotherapists at a time we could not afford to lose them. We needed them because they did not agree with the government forcing them to, and the government's mandates. We will be asking them to come home. Sadly, I doubt few will because they've already left and resettled now in other provinces, but we would like them to come home because we need them.
Thank you. Rob?
It's absolutely critical to deal with this in terms of each individual's circumstances. And so the work that we need to do is to actually focus on what is it going to take in order to enable folks to come back, that they'll feel willing to come back. And that's going to be different for each individual. And so as part of the work on healthcare and healthcare for this island, that's something that I really want to work on very hard, a couple times a month at a minimum, to figure it out and then deal with it on an individual by individual basis, and that's how it can be fixed. Thanks.
Thank you. Sarah?
Thank you. So again, I mean, the pandemic was such a difficult time for so many folks, and I understand that the impact lasted a lot longer for some of us. And there's repair that needs to happen after after a division that's that big, really. So we do want to welcome all of those workers back, We need them. I agree with that. When it comes to Bill 36 or the Health Professions Occupations Act, that was done in response to an expert report because there were concerns within the professions. And so that stemmed from recommendations intended to keep us all safe. And honestly, it's a bit of a surprise to me how politicized it's become.
Thank you for all of your questions. We're now going to move to each candidate's 2-minute closing statement. We will start in reverse order. So Sarah, I call on you, Sarah Riddle of the BC NDP Party, to make closing remarks for 2 minutes, please. Sarah, the floor is yours.
Okay, thank you. So the Green Party wants you to think that they are the safe, progressive vote in this election, and they aren't. I think we all heard how popular Adam Wolfson was, how many of us have his phone number, and the last time a popular Green stepped down, they lost the seat by a landslide. And that doesn't even account for the split in the Green vote that we have here with Amy at the table today, or an election where the stakes are so high. If you don't want to see John Rustad as your premier, if you don't want to bring back plastic bags or straws or level or old growth, if you don't want to expand LNG or set back reconciliation with First Nations decades, if you don't want your money going to private schools and you don't want your health care to suffer so that those with means can access theirs faster, if you're a middle income earner and you don't want to lose your childcare, and if you want an MLA in your riding that can get things done for you, then please vote for me in the BC NDP. Thanks.
Thank you, Sarah Riddle, BC NDP Party. Next up, Rob Botterell, BC Green Party. Rob, please go ahead. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Well, I think Sarah's brought up the elephant in the room. There are a number of you in this room that are concerned, very concerned about a Conservative win. And do I have to vote NDP, although I'd like to vote Green, because that'll keep the Conservatives out? This is a strong double Green riding. The current polling, which is available, shows that the Green Party, me as candidate, is leading, and we're leading both the Conservatives and the NDP, who are tied. We're leading them by 5 points. So the choice you have, if that is the concern, a strategic vote, the strategic vote is to vote Green. The strategic vote is not to vote NDP. And that's an important consideration. I understand that. But I also want you to think about who can actually hold the government's feet to the fire, who can actually spend the time with you to actually work as hard as possible on the housing, on the transportation, on the health care, and who is committed to actually have a carbon tax and fight for the environment. And so on October 9th, I hope you'll consider making me the next independent thinker in the legislature. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob Botterell, BC Green Party. Up next, David Bush, BC Conservative Party. David, the floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Thank you. I hope you've all enjoyed yourself tonight and have a better idea of where we all stand, our similarities as well as our differences. One thing I do agree with my friends is the elections this time around, the stakes are indeed high. I've knocked on a lot of doors, and one question I keep asking people, are you better off today than you were 4 years ago, than you were 7 years ago? And I see a lot of head shaking, and that's the response I get at the door. People going, no, we're not. We need change, and the time for change is now. You have a decision to make. Who can best represent you? Do we want the status quo? Do we want to keep this as a green riding? Do we want to see the NDP still in power? Or do you want to see a different approach? Give a different path a chance so that we can turn around the ever-increasing opioid deaths on our streets, so we can save our healthcare system to make sure it's there for us today and our kids tomorrow? Do you want to see an end to the ever-increasing deficits? Because that's costing us money every year. It's money that should be put into our social services, into healthcare, into education, into housing. Do you want to see an end to the ever-increasing cost of living and housing? Because in order to do that, we need a different approach. Now, I'm happy to see David Eby starting to adopt, or at least pay lip service, to many of our platform policies. But they've had 7 years. You hear a lot about how we've got plans, or we're going to. Well, why didn't they do it sooner? Why didn't they start it 6 months ago? Why not even a month ago? They can still do legislation by regulations. They haven't. So please, on October 19th, or better yet sooner at the advance polls, don't wait, vote Conservative in the next election.
Thank you, David Bush, BC Conservative Party. Finally, Amy Haysom, Independent. Amy, please go ahead. The floor is yours for 2 minutes.
Strategic schmegic. Vote from your heart. It is rhetoric from the parties to maintain the status quo, and we need to move away from the status quo. Independents are going to play a key role in this election. This won't be properly reflected in 338 Canada polls that Rob refers to, as they don't assess for independents. But the reality is many people are not even responding to polls because they are undecided and disillusioned. This is a concern. We are all new in terms of going into the legislature. We'll all be new in this. And I am in this for the long haul. Rob likes to sail on his boat. This was a project to get him out of the house. David Bush doesn't live in this riding. And Sarah is probably my main contender, and I'll tell you why. We need much better representation in the Legislative Assembly, and this includes needing more women in the Legislative Assembly. And Sarah did miss attending an all-candidates debate on Saturna Island and has declined to respond to a question related to the Aurora Housing Project, a key issue in Central Saanich. I am brave. I think you can tell. I think I am kind of popular. I'm doing pretty well in the straw polls. I have plenty to learn, but I am learning quickly, and again, I am in this for the long haul. My commitment is to a yes and approach. I will be connecting with all parties outside of the Legislative Assembly. David and I had a wonderful carpool together where we had healthy conversation. It is possible about all the key issues. I will be that strong voice in a divided legislature. Aim for Amy. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Amy Haysom, Independent. Candidates, thank you very much. Best of luck on October 19th.
Thank you.
Just a final reminder, if you would like to vote in advance, October 10th, 11th, 12th, 13th, and 15th, and 16th, polling stations are open at the Community Gospel Chapel, and election day is October 19th, Fernwood Elementary School, Community Gospel Chapel, Gulf Island Secondary School, Fulford Elementary School. Polling stations are open 8 to 8. A video of this evening will be available on the Driftwood and the Salt Spring Forum websites starting on Friday. Following the event, the candidates will be in the lobby for a brief period, providing you an opportunity if you have any further questions or comments. Have a wonderful evening.